I hate it when a fly buzzes and taps against the inside of my bedroom window. You know that thing where you try to gently coax it out, but it flits sideways? I lay there that early autumn morning, focused on the irritating hum. I thought, that sounds like an odd fly. I should get it out. But I was too cozy in bed. It would settle down, and I could let it out when I got up. But then a buddy joined it, and I couldn't get back to sleep. They dive-bombed the window glass. Buzz, 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 tap, tap. The good news that morning was my next-door neighbor was quiet. When I'd moved into this neighborhood, it was beautifully hush, except in the mornings, with the chorus of doves and goldfinches. If you listened carefully, you could just make out the whisper of a distant freeway, almost calming. No noisy families. Until my neighbor moved in. She has a kid, and I've got nothing against single mothers. I'm not some holier-than-thou freak, but I can't deal with noise. And this little kid, bam, 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 went his feet early in the morning, excited at being alive, sprints round the house. But not that autumn dawn. 6:30 a.m. said my clock, well into bam, bam, and mummy time. Instead, blissful silence, like there used to be. Apart from the buzzing flies, headbutting my bedroom window. The kid had looked cute enough when he played in the garden as they moved in, but my neighbor wasn't so friendly, seemed pretty introverted, sour. I tried to engage her in conversation, but stilted. I never found out who Dad was, where she moved from, or anything, except one morning the kid had been sprinting round the garden at 6:45 a.m. I was pissed, ready to confront her. It was one thing to be woken by the bangs from inside, but this was too much. I had trodden onto the dewy grass barefoot in PJs. I tried to explain to her about my anxiety disorder. She blanked me. The kid ran up, hugged my legs. I softened a bit. Started to calmly explain how I had been in Afghanistan, was sensitive to loud noises. She had just walked away into her open garage. Bright lights within, and a long table full of electronics hobby gear. Curious, I approached. Jars of colored liquids on the bench, and at one end, some futuristic-looking large black oblong of metal. She had caught my curious stares. For the first time, she seemed interested to talk. A PCR machine. I was blank. Allows rapid amplification of a specific segment of DNA. Still blank. It's my hobby. I'm an amateur genetic engineer. She motioned me in. My neighbor had led me to a glass tank in the corner, opened the top and pulled out a worm. Big one. It was the strangest worm I ever saw. I winced. It's safe, she said, like a typical earthworm, but with legs. A centipede without segments? She offered it to my hands. I explained I don't like creepy crawlies. I crossed Diplopoda with a Lumbricus terrestris, she said, earthworm with millipede. It was gross and sent shiver up my back. From behind me, I heard the kid's voice. Hey, mister, if you like animals, you'll love this. I had turned with a smile. The little boy shoved his hand in my face. In his palm, a house spider. I screamed, pushed him away in terror. He fell to the concrete floor, crushing the spider accidentally under his palm. He sobbed, bloody scrape marks on his right forearm. All I had eyes for was the half-dead spider. Black bulbous body, jagged legs with tiny hairs. It wiggled them with its death agony. His mother had shouted at me, "Why'd you do that?" She pushed me out of the garage. I had tried to explain. Severe arachnophobia, amplified by my PTSD. She didn't give a shit. All she saw was her bleeding kid and a violent man. I backed out of that garage. And pretty rapidly things had gone south after that day. After that, I had become hypersensitive to any noise the kid made. At times, I lay in bed with tears of frustration coming out of my eyes. I would try desperately to focus on reading, meditating. I even tried earplugs, which are painful for me. I had stood on her front porch a few times, the first time trying to be calm. The second time, I ashamed to say, I had been rather more angry. She looked scared. I hadn't meant to frighten her, but I was exhausted. I was tense, as I hate confrontation. She had slammed the door in my face. The bumps and cries felt louder from that day. I'm sure it was my imagination, but they felt louder. I had hired a lawyer to send a letter. What a waste of money. I had begged the police to intervene. No response. I had called the mayor's office, played the veteran card to get him to speak to me. Nothing. Who was going to take the side of a big ex-Marine like me over a single mother with a little kid? I had despaired. Played booming white noise to cover the kid's sounds. I realized it probably was so loud, it disturbed them. I am sorry to say that thought pleased me. So, I hope you now see why I was so surprised to wake up this morning to total silence. All I could hear was those beautiful birds. Well, and those pesky flies in my bedroom. But I ignored the buzzing and got out of bed and headed downstairs. I went out into the awakening dawn, checked my mailbox. A veteran's check and a second letter. A fly landed on the check and I brushed it off. The garden seemed full of flies this morning, but I don't mind them outside. I opened and read the second letter. Dear neighbor, you'll be pleased to know we're moving out. My son is in tears, but I'm sick of being scared of my neighbor. We've gone to visit family while the movers do their work. We hope you like the present we left you. X. Yes. Yes. I was so excited. At last. Every morning would be like this. Thank you, God. I kissed the letter, took a deep breath and headed back into my front hall. I stood straight on an insect. Ugh! It sent a shiver up my spine. I grabbed my foot, looked at the sole. A crushed spider. One of the big house ones I loathe. That squishy, crunchy body, and things that looked like fangs. I know they rarely usually bite, but apparently when they do. I shuddered, even seeing a dead one that had recently been alive. That had touched me. I scraped off my foot on the concrete step outside. Another fly around the entrance, so I slammed the door shut to stop them getting in. I went to the kitchen and washed my foot. Even a small bit of that black spider blood made me retch. I did some breathing exercises standing at the kitchen window and calmed a little. Back in my bedroom, all was peaceful. I still had that echo of fear from stepping on the spider, but was calmed when I realized the flies were no longer buzzing in the room. And without the sound of the kid next door, and knowing he was gone forever, I was in bliss. I reread the letter, ecstatic. The promise of a gift didn't register with me then. I put Singing Monks on my phone Spotify, lowered the lights, got into my warm bed to meditate, sat up and fell straight back to sleep. I woke up and kept my eyes closed, savoring that lovely sense of nothing to do, nowhere to go, silence, except nature and the sound of monks. I opened my eyes facing the opposite wall. At first I thought I was seeing things. I did too much acid back at college, so in low light I sometimes see things that aren't there. I could see some spots on my wall. Weird. There were 3 or 4 on the wall in front of my bed. There were a couple on the wall by the window. I rubbed my LSD-weary eyes, but the spots were still there. The room lit up in a glare as I flicked on the main light. These were not spots. They were fucking house spiders. Every arachnophobe's deepest fear is to have a spider creep into their room while they slept and sit silent on the wall, waiting. I tried all the techniques I'd learned. The breathing, reminding myself house spiders were harmless. But it wasn't me in that bed now. It was a prehistoric Neanderthal, alone in his cave at night, tending a fire, gazing out into the blackness, and seeing something alive, but immobile. Jumping out of bed made me feel less vulnerable. I kept glancing from wall to wall, as if they were going to leap off and attack. My fight or flight was coursed through me with the adrenaline. I had never seen so many house spiders in one place. Then, I had the thought of checking the ceiling above me. Big mistake. My throat was still hurting from my roar of fear as I leapt down the stairs. Oh God, how was I going to deal with this? How could I ever sleep in there again? I opened the front door, hyperventilating. Another fly buzzed in. FFS. But weirdly comforting. Flies and spiders are enemies. The fresh air helped me think more logically. House spiders are stupid and dull. They're not like flies. When you try to kill a fly, it's hypersensitive. It senses the fly swat approaching through the air pressures, launches in a few milliseconds. House spiders, they sure can move with those triangular legs, but they're not so sensitive. Easier to crush. If I tiptoed, they wouldn't all rush to attack me. I could crush each one quickly with the heel of a shoe. One by one, they'd become stains on the wall. I'd do it gently but fast. No vibrations for the others to pick up. Then I could clean and disinfect the walls. Maybe I could get in pest control and spend a few nights in a hotel and... I opened my bedroom door. The spiders were motionless, including the 6 or so on the ceiling that had terrified me so. I wielded a small shoe with a firm heel, tiptoed barefoot to the nearest spider on the wall. I couldn't help but keep looking back and up at the others to see if they'd moved. Of course they hadn't. I positioned the shoe over the motionless spider, held my breath, and stopped. It did look a bit odd for a spider, but perhaps it was just my fear triggering me. I lowered the heel quickly, firmly and quietly onto it. It didn't have a chance. I gently shuffled the heel from side to side and pulled it back. There wasn't even a mark. I looked on the shoe. Nothing there. No crushed spider. I checked the floor. No spider corpse. I noticed a fly was buzzing around again. Not exactly my top priority right now. I moved to the next spider on the wall. Gently lowered that heel. Crush. Lift. Nothing. Nothing on the shoe. Nothing on the wall. Nothing on the floor. For a horrible moment, I thought it had dropped onto me. I scrubbed my body with my hand, studied myself, panicked. Nothing there. Silence except for the buzzing flies. My fear changed its taste, a cocktail of the old arachnophobia, combined with a sense of dread mystery. My arachnophobia won the day. I just had to keep on trying. The third try, the third spider. Exactly the same result. The mysterious dread slowly grew, but the buzzing was starting to irritate me. How many darn flies were there in my bedroom? How many darn flies were there in my bedroom? A fly landed on my arm. No. A large, hairy house spider landed on my arm. I froze for a moment, had a chance to see its fly wings, the same veined transparency from nature documentaries. I almost blacked out with anxiety. It flew away. It flew away. I blacked for a few moments there. The next thing I knew, I was out of breath. In the kitchen, looking under the sink. Why was I looking under the sink? Of course. Liquid. What I needed was liquid. You could hit flies with a spray of noxious fluid. I had used spray bleach in the past. I grabbed it. Stood a little staring out at the trees outside. How could spiders be flying? It had looked like a spider and like a fly. Were they all flies in my bedroom? All spiders? All some combination? Oh shit. Some combination. Some gift. I glanced round. There were a handful of spiders on the walls in the kitchen. I stood motionless. I felt a breeze. I was terrified it would set off the flies. No spiders. I searched for its source. It was on my ankles. Came from under the kitchen table. The table was pushed against the wall where my house faced my neighbor's. I bent down slowly, looked under the table there. That's where the breeze was coming from. I don't want to write the next bit, but I have to get this down. I can't keep it inside. There was a fist-sized hole in the wall, under the table. The entirety of the floor in front of the hole was a blackish-brown carpet of house spiders. The whole of the underside of the table was covered in the same jagged, alive coating. More spiders were constantly crawling through the hole, joining the carpet, building a carpet of legs and bodies on the wall around the hole. There were hundreds, or was it thousands? Almost all had wings, but there were a handful with centipede-like torsos, which dragged behind them. There were spiders with large shells like cockroaches. I felt my stomach urging. My skin tingled painfully, which may explain why I did what I did next. And after I've told you, I won't be able to write anymore. Some things I cannot put into words. Remember, I was that Neanderthal, and the monster had come into the light, and its horror was beyond anything I could have imagined. So, I used the only weapon I had. I ripped the top off the bleach and flung its contents under the table. And in that few milliseconds, everything with wings took to the air. I'm writing this now from a hotel room many miles from my neighborhood. All the lights are on, the windows closed. I'm sat on the bed naked. My skin is covered in the scratches of my own fingernails and bright red from the boiling hot showers I've been taking. I've removed the sheets off the bed, turned all the furniture upside down. I'm alone in the room, I'm sure. I need to find my ex-neighbor, but I cannot go into my house or hers. I can't go back to my street to wait for her movers. Right now, I can't even move from this bed or close my eyes to sleep. I'm waiting for the sun to come back up and keeping my eyes on the walls and ceiling.